Matthew 7, verse 6. Do not give to dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. This verse is often assumed to mean that we should not share sacred or esoteric knowledge with the masses or the uninitiated. I have seen members of secret societies and sympathizers of secret societies use this verse to justify keeping holy wisdom from the so-called masses who they believe are undeserving of such treasures. Often, this defense of secrecy is paired with an elitist attitude, which places the initiated occultist above the uninitiated, as if possessing occulted secrets makes one spiritually superior. But is this really what Jesus meant when he said not to cast our pearls before swine? Just looking at his ministry full of publicly performed miracles and his directive to his disciples to shine before men like a city on a hill, it's hard to imagine that Jesus would ever defend secrecy or elitism. In fact, I like to think of Jesus' mission as the opposite of a secret society, a mission to share spiritual knowledge freely and openly, to expose secrets, to uncover what was hidden in darkness, and to give everyone a chance to evolve, not just self-appointed elites. Jesus didn't seem to perceive the crowds he preached to as dogs or swine. So what did Jesus really mean when he said this? I propose that when Jesus said not to cast pearls before swine, he actually meant that we should meet people where they're at. Meaning, if someone is in a crisis, desperately starving for food, that might not be the best time to preach to them about breatharianism. Breatharianism in this case would be a pearl of wisdom that, when cast before ravenously hungry swine, would be useless to them, and perhaps even insulting to them. Likewise, if a pack of stray dogs were skeletal and mangy, but instead of treating those dogs, you preached at them about how they should be joyful because this world is an illusion, you would be giving what is sacred to the dogs, and they would feel justified in turning and tearing you to pieces. Jesus had excellent discernment about when to preach to people and when to heal them. He knew when to walk on water and when to wash feet. It is clear in the Gospels that Jesus changed his style of sharing knowledge depending on who he was speaking to, sharing metaphors and parables when preaching to crowds of thousands, but saving his bluntness for his inner circle of disciples. But regardless of how he framed the truth, ultimately he was always sharing truth with dogs and disciples alike. His gospel was one of head knowledge and embodied experience, unlike the Pharisees, who he so often criticized for only having head knowledge. In their arrogance, the Pharisees wielded their head knowledge of scriptures as proof of their elite spiritual status, but this elitism blinded them to their own lack of embodied experience. Had they truly understood and embodied the spirit of the law, not just the letter of the law, the Pharisees would have joined Jesus in going out and healing the sick, raising the dead, and so on. And this brings me back to my critique of modern occultists who fancy themselves elites and think of the uninitiated masses as swine who do not deserve to know truth. If the elites really grasped truth, they would not be stingy with it. They would not be secretive. They would not attempt to occult or hide knowledge in the shadows of society. Rather, they would be spontaneous and free in their expression of truth, for they would genuinely hold the key to immortality and therefore be unafraid of punishment for sharing it with others. Jesus himself demonstrated this when he made immortality public by preaching it and raising the dead. He knew the masses would not react kindly to this, but that didn't stop him from proclaiming life everywhere he went, in every word and in every action. Because what can a mortal do to harm an immortal? Nothing. The flogging didn't end him. The crucifixion didn't end him. The truth is immortality. Immortals are fearless. The fearless have no reason to hide truth. Anyone who discourages you from sharing sacred knowledge openly and publicly cannot claim to understand what truth is. For the very nature of truth is that it shines so brightly that you couldn't hide it even if you tried. Truth cannot be occulted. It is always, always, always in plain sight. No tomb can bury it. No shadow can obscure it. No binding or hex can ensnare it. Truth is free, just like life. Anyone who asks will receive it. I praise God for this phenomenal grace and mercy.